Wow, it's such an amazing thing to think. I went on a quick journey to fix two issues. One, the download, well, it's now a download feature, but essentially the historical feature for pulling up your old test quiz. I knew there was going to be memory limitations because trying out a few of them, I was noticing nuances. However, in my last video, I tried a fresh pull up and it looks like my new interactive quiz, the fixes I put in there meant the memory cache was being overridden for the old history. And what I thought would just be a quick one too, let's go back, check the logs, put in a directive to make sure that the logs actually stuck, turned into a memory issue. So the system couldn't, because of the capacity of the interactive log, the reset feature, the stop feature that I put in to ensure that you're able to essentially get the interactive quiz to stop, restart, give you a new quiz. That stop deleted the memory from the historical data. However, because the failure log is a separate log, it logged your failures while not keeping essentially the AI chose one version of memory over another, and that's fair. That's I preferred what it chose to keep versus what it chose to forget. So couple iterations, couple directives, couple tries. I went from 16. By the time I got to 20, I found myself reverting back and deleting directives because it was causing conflicts. Then the memory issue led me down a rabbit hole. So it turns out when you get towards the end of it all, lessons 17, 18, 19, 20, by that point, you have this massive failure log, or because of the way I was doing it, I have a massive failure log, which is essentially taking up a lot of memory. Lesson 17 is a quick fire overview for your port numbers, things like that. That particular lesson turned out used a massive amount of memory. And the reason for that was because of a directive to give you a scenario-based question, which I also noticed in 16, I was getting these little short answers. I wanted a scenario-based question for the 20 questions that I was developing. That's, again, more memory being utilized. So that particular directive was causing 17 to crash because I have a quick fire scenario with all these port numbers. There's a lot of ports to go over, raids to go over, and it also has to do that amount of data plus make them uniquely scenario based 20 questions. It crashed around, like, I would say line 800. So it possibly would have went thousands of lines depending on if it would have gone through, if it had the memory capacity to do so. So I ended up having to change that directive. That made me look at 19 and 18 and 19. 18 was my attempt at a PBQ execution, which utilized JavaScript to HTML. I wrote the script terribly. AI gave me a thumbs up, but after looking back, I realized that it wasn't really able to process my script properly. So to it looked good. In practicality, it didn't work. So one issue with the way that I did it, I would essentially start 18 as my attempt at a PBQ, and accidentally change the directive for 19 and 20, which were my exams. 19 being your final exam where you go through everything, including your full failure log, which could be massive. So that was a memory issue as well. That failed to load. And it failed to load because I changed the directive on 18 because of the way I did the PBQs. The script essentially was causing 19 and 20 to crash. So I decided to switch that up and move 18 to the back end. So it's no longer part of the failure log. It's its own last minute interactive set with 18 and 19 running in and taking its place. Then I had to go through and change over a lot of my directives because they directly pointed to 20 being the test based on your full failure logs. But 20 is not that anymore. It's the PBQ. So in this, what should have been a quick, let's go ahead and up the scenario base. Let's go ahead and fix this access to your old historical data, turned into a massive deep dive. So I jumped from 16 to version 26. I was working, going back, asking it to correct the directives, double checking my work, looking over. And one thing I hate is that Gemini would be like, we're good. And then I go through and I'm like, we're not good. And this little thing, hold on, let me pull this up here. One moment. All right, I had to go to my email there to pull that up. So I just sent a screenshot of my stuff. It's funky. Because when I go on Gemini and it's telling me that things are good, and I'm like, okay, and I test it, I'm like, no, this isn't right. And then I'll go back and be like, hey, double check my work here. Look at the logic. There's a conflict that I'm not understanding or nuance that I think could be fixed if I do this. Can you make sure that if I do that, it'll actually work? And it comes down to like these things where I have to argue with the AI and be like, no, this isn't right. What about this? No, if we look at the logic from this angle, no. If you were to apply this, then that's wrong. It literally at one point told me to go back to version 10, which is the pre-version before I forced the interactive quiz to change. Because I forced it to change, it couldn't and around there is where I added that stop directive. It couldn't keep that memory of the previous data with the structure that I have for that stop. That stop essentially clears the memory so that way it doesn't hang. And that was an issue I was having where I would be like, let's start mastery. Boom, it loads, it looks great. And then just immediately after, let's start mastery again because I want to do that test again. And it would just kind of freeze on screen and fail to load. So adding that stop around version 10 is what forced that to clear the memory. On top of that, forcing it to clear the memory, it also went ahead and I fixed it the way that it looked, adding things like not submitting the data, not submitting the quiz without all the questions being answered, stuff like that was around there too. Forcing it to be a certain size because sometimes Gemini would anticipate the size and make it where you have to kind of scroll down to even see all the questions on the screen. It was like, why is it so big? So those kind of directives were around that. So it's telling me to revert, and I'm arguing with this thing, and it's like, finally, you're absolutely right to trust your instincts because you can't just take the AI as is. It will give you an answer that it believes to be correct, which it's supposed to be smarter than me, so that answer should be correct. But it's like, no, that doesn't make sense. The structure of the quiz evolved, improved, and stabilized by the time I got to version 20. This is probably a screenshot from 23 or 24. But we should not regress your design by forcing version 12 constraints back into the document. Disregard my previous advice about the HTML mandate and the 4 option constraints. So things that I changed. I will keep the monitor evolve 25 structure intact. So we're looking at version 26 right now, but this is a fix to addressing, this wasn't 22 or 23, it was 25. So this is a fix to get me to this version where I am now. And around 22, 23, I was adjusting these questions. So that's probably what's in my head. So I moved these questions around. I reordered session 18, 19, and 20. And I was having PBQ failures at 18, and I'm having the same PBQ failures at 20. So the positional change fixed um, the final exam test and the failure log test. So those were fixed and addressed. But the PBQs having trouble with. So addressing that in this go around for version 26. So 25 we applied this, and 26 we're looking at what should be a working product. So throughout my mastery documents, this is why I was having issue with the PBQs. Essentially, the AI is aggressively commanded to enforce a 20 question limit. And then it called me out of my shit. I didn't even realize how many times I specified this number. So we have a code block mandate. We have a single screen layout mandate because it was requiring you to scroll just to see stuff, on the screen. And then on top of that, it was also putting it where you answered this question, click next. Answered that question, click next. Answered that question, click next, which was nice, but it also created an issue with skipping. It would skip the question. When you hit next, it might skip 3 questions. So forcing it into a single screen for this interactive exam, that was the fix. So that had a 20 questions must be rendered restriction. The submit button not being able to be clicked until all 20 questions are answered. So essentially the data constraint restraint requirement. So an itemized list of the 20 questions, this is tied to the mandate requiring it to randomize the questions themselves. So it just called me out. Like, look how many times you told me to follow this 20 questions. I just found that to be really humorous. So when I reach the PBQ section, which is now going to be section 20, I need to apparently shift to command it to do 3 to 5 complex questions because it's trying to do the PBQs with the 20 section mandate, which is just too intensive for the memory. It just cannot keep up. The AI is experiencing a logical paradox. It tries to build a complex drag and drop PBQ interface. But its core programming is screaming that the submit button cannot be activated until 20 questions have been answered. Now I'm restricting it 3 to 5 questions to try to reduce the impact on memory. So just addressing those particular things, but it's just like absolutely right to trust my instinct, not just making a change because the AI said to make a change, going through and kind of doing it myself. And then seeing how it worked and checking my own logic against the AI's logic and making sure that this is what I'm looking to do. So it's just a process. It's a fun process, but it's not a quick one. Just to fix 2 issues led me down this rabbit hole. I am now 10 updates later. I just feel like a programmer, like, yeah, I built a website. It's good. Go ahead and run it and open it to the public. And was like, well, the website can only handle 10 people. And like, oh, we need more servers. Oh, we need to optimize the usage of memory on this web page. Oh, this particular structure doesn't work on mobile, and it doesn't work on Macs, and it's just like all these little things that you didn't think about. I've been building it with sessions like 1 to 5, just quickly going through, not going through all 20. So this rabbit hole from memory ended up taking me through the last half and realizing, oh shit, this is an issue. So just kind of let's go ahead. Let's begin. We'll do session 1. And I'm just gonna quickly just do a quick section and close this video out. I'm still playing around with the PBQs. Loading, not loading, loading, not loading. It's loading on Google Chrome, not loading on Mozilla. So it's something with the browser, and I need to identify exactly what that is. Interestingly enough, I had stuff loading in Mozilla, stuff loading in Chrome, and then I have the Brave browser, which my brother just put me onto, and nothing loaded in there. So I'm guessing it's a restriction, the same restriction that's used to block pop-ups and ads was blocking this. So it is not going to be for all browsers. So I'm going to go ahead and add in, I'm just doing a quick thing to make sure my structure is, because I've been changing this and I haven't looked at the earlier sections. I'm looking at the later quiz and PBQs. Let's begin history. So yeah, it's just interesting. So in my troubleshoot, it's gonna be like, try a different browser. And I think that's what I'm gonna end up coming up with as a fix to that, because it's not something I can control at this current time, because I'm restricted within this AI essential bubble. Um, so now that's also what I'm seeing on screen. I was just waiting for this to pop up, because I have not figured out. I tried to put a mandate to not load until the preview, until you got enough data for the preview to be active. And that mandate didn't work. It caused the program to crash. So seeing that it didn't load until the preview, it's like, I just cannot figure that out. I really, really cannot. So this was my, just going back to version 16, where I had issues with downloads, with the history, and and I keep mentioning downloads because that was my fix. So I had issues with the history, and I had issues with the questions being too linear, too straightforward, too definition based. So as you can see, the questions are um, a little bit more scenario based and more detailed. So it's not cutting that corner anymore just to get a question out there. So no more quick questions. And that's what I wanted to see. This is what I wanted to see. Oh, I thought I clicked these. Maybe I scrolled. Mm. And this interactive bubble restriction, I'm not. See how it looks here? I have sometimes Gemini will load it where it's a button. And sometimes it loads it where it's like this highlight. Not too picky on that. Is following my constraints, the single window, the submit button restriction. So I'm fine with that. The final constraint: show me what's right, show me what's wrong, explain to me why it's right or wrong. So that way you can actually have that historical data, and kind of go back and be like, okay, this is why this wasn't the correct answer. On top of that, you get your score. So we still got that. And now we have a button to download results. So this is how it's going to be for the historical data if you want to keep your data. And that's because of the restrictions on the historical data in memory. So this was the previous exam. This is the new one. So they're both from session 1, just testing it out. You can see that it's a brand new question generated every time, so you're not going to have that same nuance. It still has the what was your answer, what was the correct answer, the logic behind why the answer is what it is. So I think this is going to be okay if you want to keep your historical data. You just download it yourself. If you don't want to keep it, you don't keep it. And then we get to preserve the memory utilization so that we can work within the Gemini constraints. And when I restart the exam, that stop directive is going to initiate. So it's going to clear this. And then after clearing it, it's going to reload a brand new exam. So overall, I think this addresses a lot of those core features that I was addressing in version 16. It pointed out an issue I had with my final exam, the PBQs. So now version 18 and 19 now work. Now, I'm not running 18 and 19 here because 18 is your essential final exam. And you can't have the final exam without going through the lesson plan. So unfortunately, if I was to run 18 now, it's going to crash. Well, it's just going to fail to load. And that's because it doesn't have your session history. You haven't done any sessions. I haven't gone through anything at all. So people can jump around, but those last three, 18, 19, 20, well, 18, 19, they can't just jump to. 18 being a final exam and 20 being a run through of your failure log. I have a failure log now generated, but it's just not detailed enough for it to be worth it. Again, let's go to session 18. So even though it's not here, Let's Begin Mastery would fail, the interactive exam would fail. But if someone was to say, hey, just getting into the habit of starting the session and then going to mastery, they don't need to for 1819. But if you ran that directive, it's going to essentially break down what it is. And I just love it because I did this and I noticed it before, and I'm just like, that's hilarious. So 18 is our final mock exam. It actually defined what a final mock exam was with the real world scenario an exam need to know. It breaks down the framework of how the final exam is utilized based on your real world and the exams. And it's just like you even have it. So I'm not going to change this nuance. It's just hilarious to me. That coming in here, you're like, wait, why are you telling me about the exam and defining the exam? But it's interesting. Um, I think session 19 kind of does that as well. Um, so again, not going to load them because they don't have that historical data to actually run properly. So fix the nuance where you can jump from 5 to 4 to 9 to 1. But unfortunately, these are running off your historical data. So I can't jump into it because I don't have that. I'm running it on another chat window. So this is going to be you know what? Let's see if 19 will run because I did take session 1 and I failed. So it's just that this nuance is just funny to me. It's just breaking down what the session's about. Let's Yeah, this each question will be generated with 100% difficulty rating. 130% difficulty rating. Yeah. It's not gonna load properly. I don't have enough failure data in this directive. It's interesting that it gave me remediation for a test that didn't take. So this is the failure that I essentially don't have because I didn't do ALE calculation logic. I didn't do OAuth. I didn't. So this is what I'm leaning into, that you cannot load 18 and 19 without running through the big session. So interestingly enough, I'm gonna still again playing around with these last little parts just to fix these nuances. Understandably, I know why they're there, and I would pull up the other chat, but that chat has so much testing going in there. It's not that I don't believe it will work. I keep messing with it. I keep changing stuff in there. I keep just kind of see what it is. I actually keep having to tell Gemini to forget what we just talked about, starting fresh from here. And that's how I keep that chat going. I could just open a new chat window, but I'm playing with it. Um, but overall, I think I'm working on a really decent product, but still some nuances. Understandably, why these nuances are there. Knowing that I was going to fail this because it didn't have the historical data, so that just makes sense. But I want to address why I didn't have the historical data, but why you've given me remediation on a failure that I didn't actually get. So I should have gotten failures related to, yeah, maybe zero trust, because that's in that first session. SIM versus SOAR is not what you cover in general security practices. So still some touching up to do, but overall, I'm very happy with how the product is turning out.